everyone. Welcome back to She Births Podcast. I'm your host, Brittany Shell, and today's guest is Randy. Hi, Randy.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being a returning guest.
Thanks for having me come back.
So, can you start by telling us your journey as a mother raising children with neurodiversities?
Yes, that's a long story, but I'll give you the short version. So, my kid she is now 18.
Oh,
But she was diagnosed with autism at the age of 8. Took a long time. They tried to give her every other diagnosis in the book: ADHD, sensory processing, mood dysregulation, and
wow.
more. And the schools just didn't really want to deal with her because she was difficult. So they'd put her in a different class and put her in a different class. So COVID actually worked out really well for us because she did all her work online. So that worked out well and showed the high school that she's very capable of doing her work. And so she did graduate last year.
Nice.
She got a medal for having like over 80% overall. So that was pretty spectacular considering the ups and downs of school. And when she was about 9 was the first time that she attempted suicide. There was a few different things that we had to go through that if you want to ask, then we'll talk about. But she ended up going to, it's called CPRI here in Ontario. And she lived there for 3 months. We would have to drive her up on Monday. She'd come home on Fridays, and back and forth for a while for 3 months. It was amazing though. It was the best thing to do, even though it was the hardest thing, because they were finally able to do all the assessments we had been asking for: the psychoeducational, the occupational therapy, speech therapy, and others. So finally we had a lot more answers than previously. But as a parent, to more hone in on your question, as a parent, it's stinking hard because especially at the beginning, felt like we were the only ones, like my husband and I, we were the only ones that we knew with a kid with any kind of neurodivergency, and we didn't know what to do. So it was a lot of research, a lot of crying, a lot of late nights. Eventually we found other parents to talk with, to get ideas from, which did make it a lot easier because the feeling by yourself is the worst. So raising a kid is never easy. Raising a kid when you're thrown a curveball like that just kind of adds to the fun.
Oh man, I'm so scared because I have like bipolar and I have ADHD, and I'm so scared to have a kid because then they might have it, and I'm just like, I don't know if I could do it, if I could raise a kid that's
You
dealing with what I deal with.
you definitely could, because you know what to expect now because you have it, right? And
Right.
everyone's different, obviously, and are going to have their own little struggles, but you know some of those coping skills and strategies already. I was diagnosed with autism
Oh,
way after Lev was. It was actually her that said, "Mom, if I have it, you have it." I went, "Oh, yeah,
yeah.
maybe." Um, but had I known way back when I was younger, like her, and been able to get the different strategies and therapy and stuff put in place way back then, I think I would have been better equipped to deal with her because I would have known what was coming. So don't be scared. You got it. If it ever happens for you, I think you got it.
So, for people that don't know what neurodiversity is, do you want to explain what that is for those that don't
Yes,
know what it is?
sure. I like to say it's your brain thinks different. Short and sweet. That's how I like it. It encompasses things like autism, ADHD, learning disabilities, OCD. Like it just encompasses everything really where you can't see it from the outside, but your brain is thinking differently than what is typical.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That is true. Man, I'm so scared.
Don't be. You got it. You got it. And you talk to so many people that you can get other ideas, right? So it works.
That's true. That's true. So, what inspired you to write a mother's truth raising unique children?
Yeah, so it really came down to, like I said, at the beginning, it felt like we were the only ones. And it wasn't until I started meeting other people and realizing there is, I always hate saying it, finding your tribe. I don't like that saying, but I think everyone understands what I'm saying when I say that. When you find those people that understand what you're going through,
Mhm.
situations are different, but they at least understand the basics.
Right.
It makes a world of difference. And so, as I was talking to Renata, who is the co author, she's also my best friend. She never gives herself credit for having written a book, so I'm always telling her to. But as we're talking, because her son has some similar but again different struggles, um, we just came up with this idea to share our stories so that other people can learn from the trials that we've went through.
Mhm.
So that's really where it came from, just a conversation between friends who went, oh yeah, it really did suck when we thought we were by ourselves. Maybe we can help
Yeah.
others.
So did y'all ever like think of coming up with like a podcast to like educate other mothers on having children with neurodiversities?
So we actually did one briefly, very briefly,
Mhm.
where we did specifically talk about that stuff. I think we maybe did 20 episodes, maybe. Our schedules were just so hard. And then the pandemic hit and we couldn't get together. It was just not the right timing or the right avenue for us. So she does a lot still helping me write all of my mental health books and bouncing ideas off of her. And her and I, we do a few episodes of a different podcast. So my main one, the Write or Die Show, as you know. Um, but every so often we'll have some bonus episodes, which we've called Bedlam Beyond Mental Illness. And we talk about the history of mental illness. So one of us does the research telling the other one, and we're like, what? I didn't know that. And it's quite fun. So we definitely still get together and do podcasts. It's just a regular one just wasn't fitting into our schedules.
Uh, gotcha. If y'all ever need somebody to come on, I would definitely like to come on to speak about bipolar and ADHD as well.
Excellent. Well, we'll talk. We'll talk.
So this book touches on raw emotions of being a mother to children with disabilities. Was it difficult to open up about such personal experiences?
Yes. The short answer, yes. So this was my second book. So I had already opened up about my struggles with depression,
Mhm.
but opening up the can of worms of how I perceived myself at the time as a bad parent, whew, that was hard. Um, I'm not a bad parent, but when you are in that place of complete struggle and not knowing what to do, you feel like it.
Mhm.
And so writing this book definitely had taken an emotional toll, but at the same time, knowing that it was going to help other people was kind of the guiding light to it. But there was definitely tears. There were definitely, okay, I need to go back and rewrite this because this is not coming out the way I want it to.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. Man. So was you scared to like not scared, but was you like how am I going to like how do your children feel about you writing a book based on their experiences? Like are they okay
Uh,
with it?
we got their permission. So
Their
100%
permission.
yes. I
Oh,
would
okay.
never talk about them without their permission. We don't use their names in the book. We just use the initial, but um, the permission was there. And actually, Lev, so my kid is much more open about it now. She's following in my footsteps. I'm still trying to convince her to come on my podcast, but she's following. Um, she designed the cover for that book.
Oh, it's a good cover.
Thanks. So yeah, she designed the cover. So the one picture is her face, the other picture is my friend's son, and then they have the little heartbeat in the middle because they both have anxiety, and the cross because they both had ended up at the hospital at different times. So a lot of
Oh,
I didn't even tell her what to put on the cover at all. I said, "This is what the book is about. Can you do the cover because it's about you guys?" And she's like, "Yeah." And that's what she came up with. And I
oh.
mean, that book was released. She would have been 13 at the time, I want to say. So yeah, she was about 12 or 13 when she did the cover.
Wow. So has she read it now that she's 18? Has she read the book yet?
No,
No.
she hasn't. It's not that she can't, it's in the house. She just She likes to read manga. She doesn't really care for what I'm writing.
Me
Although
and
she
your
has
daughter would get along very well. I love anime and
probably.
manga.
There you go. Yep. So does my little sister. They are all about it.
So, can you share a moment from your journey that truly defines your experiences as a mother to children with neurodiversities?
Oh, a moment. There's so many, but what just popped into my head? Because I always go with whatever the first moment is that pops into my head. There was this one time she would have been grade 4, I want to say. I want to say grade 4, so about 9 years old. Um, and yeah, because it was before CPRI, and I was at work. She had recently gotten out of the hospital a couple days before from an attempt. And this was like her first day back to school. I was back to work. I was actually teaching CPR at work at a class of, I don't know, like 20 people there. And the school was calling me. And I hit ignore on my phone. The school's calling me. I hit ignore on my phone. The school call. Okay, guys, we gotta take a quick 5-minute break. Like, I have to answer this. They're not stopping. Answer the phone. She is having just the biggest meltdown. They don't know what to do. They are needing her to get picked up, or they're going to have to call the ambulance to take her because she was out of control, in their words.
Mhm.
And I just totally broke down. I was crying. I went in the bathroom. I was like trying to put water on my face to make it look like I wasn't crying, because again, I was the only one at my work that could teach CPR. So I was an employment counselor at the time. So it was a group of clients, and I was the only one trained to do it. So I'm like, I have to do this. And I'm walking down the hallway after, could clearly tell I had been bawling my eyes out. I want to say I sent my in-laws to get her, because I was like, I can't leave work. And it was the interim manager at the time, and he saw me and he goes, come here for a second. I'm like, oh, I got to get back. He's like, no, you come here. So he brought me in, start crying, and he goes, you know what? We will reschedule this. We will apologize to everybody. You need to go home, which is probably for the best, because there's no way I could have done it. But I think that moment summarizes everything: the heartache, the hardship, the not knowing what to do, the trying to guide yourself through what feels like black clouds because you have no idea what you're doing. No parent ever does. And then you add that on top and you really have no idea what you're doing. I would say that is a very clear moment that sticks out in our journey.
Oh, wow. Oh, man. So, what are some of the biggest misconceptions people have about raising children with disabilities?
So that it's going to sound really weird that it's hard.
Mhm.
I think raising any child is hard. So that shouldn't be, don't look at us with pity. I used to always get where when I was an employment counselor, because the other people that had kids there didn't have a kid with a disability. So I'd always get, oh, you're so strong. I don't know how you do it. Don't pity us, please.
Yeah.
We
Oh,
are
yeah.
just parenting. We are loving our kids the same way any parent loves their kids.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's hard, but life is hard. That's what I like to tell Love right now. Love always goes, it feels like a chore if I do that. I go, life is a chore. So that's my catchphrase right now to her. So I think that's a really big one. Another one is, they just need more discipline. That's what my mom was always told. Stop spoiling her. She needs more discipline. No, when you have a disability, you cannot discipline it out of the child. It doesn't
Right.
work. And another one I would say comes with meltdowns, because this is something that, again, a lot of people would say. If you hear a kid say crying in the grocery store, they should just take them home.
Yeah,
I hear,
like that's
right?
what people say, and I'm just like, you don't know what's going on with that child. You don't know if they have disabilities. You don't know if they have mental things going on. Like, people should really think before they speak.
Right? And you don't know if maybe that parent, this is the only opportunity they have to get groceries for their family, so they can't just leave. They can't.
Right,
If
right,
you don't like it, you leave.
right. Exactly.
Yeah, it's disturbing. It sucks. And even I've been like, oh, please somebody make that child stop crying. But it's more because it's loud and the loudness is a sensory issue for me. Um,
Yes, yes.
but there's been times where Love's had a meltdown. I've one time we were at Walmart in the toilet paper section and she was having a bit of meltdown.
Uh-huh.
So she knocked the toilet paper down off the shelf and she crawled onto the shelf. And this little lady walks by and just gives like this look of disgust. Like, how dare you let your kid do that? And I just looked back at her and I said, what, do you want to help me? Like,
What?
honestly,
Wow.
if you have nothing constructive or nice to say, bye bye.
Right. Because my mom, me and my mom, we go grocery shopping all the time. And there was a little girl that was doing the same thing. And my mom, she usually likes talking to kids. So she'll be like, oh, what's going on, little one? Like that.
Yeah.
And then the baby will stop crying and then she'll start smiling. And I'm like, see, that's how you should approach people. Like, you don't be rude.
No. Yeah.
Man.
So those are the biggest misconceptions, I think, that
Man. So throughout the book, you discuss meltdowns and anxiety, which we just talked about. How do you personally cope with those in difficult moments?
So let me give you the two sides to that because personally when I have them, oh, I'm still working on it, but sometimes I blow up and yell. But I've learned now because it's usually at home, and this is um, actually another big misconception, goes hand in hand with this question, that when your kid is yelling at you as the parent, that they're mad at you, but the reason they're yelling at you is because they feel safe with you. They
Mhm.
feel safe enough to let their emotions out. Now, obviously, that's not 100% of the time. Sometimes they might be mad at you. But if they're just having a genuine meltdown because the day has been too much, because there's too much noise around, because there's too much light, whatever it is, a lot of times they're yelling at you because you're their safe zone. So
Mhm.
they can without feeling like they're going to be hurt. So I will, on that line of thought, sometimes if I'm really overstimulated, I'll yell at my husband. And I've learned though that I go, but I'm not really mad at you. It's just a lot going on right now. So I am learning for myself. I'm personally learning that yes, okay, I need to find different strategies than yelling. But at least I'm expressing it that I'm not mad at him, right? That it has nothing to do with him because now he goes, oh, okay, yeah. Where he used to be like, what I do, what I do. So as a parent, though, when I notice that Love is having a meltdown, um, I'll say, go take a break. And that took a long time for us to get to. And even for me, if I'm not like if somebody's not still talking to me, I'll go and take a break. Music is a really big one. So I'll say to Lev, go in your room, just take a break. It's not a timeout, it's not a grounding, but clearly there's too much of whatever is going on. So go take a break. Music seems to be the biggest one. Lev really likes the weighted blanket and the lights off. Funny
Mhm.
animal videos is a very big choice. Um, I really like yoga.
Oh.
That's very calming. Um, but yoga tends to be one that is more of an after effect than
Mhm.
in the midst of, right? So there's some different strategies you can learn for trying to prevent them from happening
Mhm.
while they're happening, and then what you can do afterwards to calm back down. So in the moment, expressing myself, but making sure people know that it is a me problem and not everyone else problem.
Mhm.
And music, turn the lights low, and music, get the stimulation that's around much lowered.
So let me ask you a question. This is questions outside of this because I'm going to school for psychology.
Mm-hmm.
And with what you're saying, do you ever like have you seeked outside help like a therapist or like a psychiatrist for helping you with
Oh
your
yeah,
children? Or
big time, big time. So both myself and Lev have been to therapy for lots of times. um, Lev went to therapy for the first time before her diagnosis because she was bullied relentlessly in kindergarten.
in
Oh, it was
kindergarten?
bad. In kindergarten, it led to night terrors. So
Oh man.
She was in therapy right from grade one, in and out of different ones. Like it wasn't consistent. She had like a therapy session for a block, and then they'd be like, okay, we've worked on that one solution, so now you have to go back on the wait list.
Oh,
Just the way it works here. So on and off for therapy, definitely for that would be what, almost 12 years for her. And then for myself, I finally was like, huh, I should go to therapy. And the first time I went would be my mid 20s. And then again, I've been on and off if I'm having like, so at first I went and I went for probably maybe a year or a little bit more. Um, and so then I was like, okay, I'm feeling pretty good. And then it was probably maybe 4 or 5 years later that I'm like, I need to go back. I need more help right now. And then I went back. So definitely, I always say that's a huge part of it because you have to learn to manage your emotions.
mm-hmm.
And this last time that I went to therapy, was it last year or the year before? I don't know. Time gets mushed together. But anyways, this last time I went, we worked on a lot of stuff around like past trauma and PTSD and stuff, and a lot of it was putting emotional names to things because we
Mm-hmm.
take for granted that we just learn them when we're little, but we don't
Yeah.
always. So there was a lot of that, and even that's what Lev did right in grade one. They were naming emotions, and I'm like, oh, I'm glad somebody else is teaching you because I can't. So that is hugely helpful, is finding a therapist that you like.
Mm-hmm.
You're not always going to find one in the first try. We've definitely had a few that were like, this is not going to work.
Yeah, not. Yeah.
Yeah. And then also finding a psychiatrist that can prescribe medication if that's what you're choosing
Mm-hmm.
to do too, because that's also something that we've done. So we've done both the talk therapy and medication, and the combination is kind of the sweet spot for us.
Yeah, definitely. So, what is one of the most challenging aspects of navigating the educational system for children with disabilities?
Hmm.
That's a
This
tough one.
Oh, it's the toughest one ever. So I am in Ontario in Canada. I have heard from when I've done interviews with lots of other people that it's very similar in the States, and other places around. But really, the school likes to do what's easy for them, what's
Yep.
right for them, and not what's easy or right for the child.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
as the parent, you have to educate yourself on the options available in your area, and educate yourself on what your child best needs, and advocate the heck out of it, because they are going to ask you to make a decision, a snap decision,
Hmm.
to do something that you haven't had a chance to research, that you don't even know what it is, but they want an answer right away. So the biggest thing that I've learned, and this can go for anybody anywhere in the world, say, I'll think about it. Don't let them put you in an emotional state and try to get your answer when you're in that emotional state, because
Hmm.
that is what they will do, and they will do whatever is easy for them. And that is why at the beginning, because at the beginning when she was little, I was like, okay, the school knows how to deal with this. The school, no, no, they don't. They just want to push kids that are difficult to the
Hmm.
sides, put them in
Yep.
classes where they can basically forget about them,
Hmm.
and not have to worry about it.
Yep.
Basically write them off. And so as the parent, you know your kid best,
Hmm.
figure out what you want and advocate for it extensively.
Man, it's amazing that you're saying this because when I was in high school, they didn't have that at all. They didn't care, like you said, at all. They didn't care. They just stuck you in classes. Like I was getting bullied every day, and my mom was coming up there threatening to fight the girls. So that didn't make it any better.
No, no, it wouldn't.
Man,
But
so
when you don't know what else to do as a parent, you just want to help your kid.
yeah, yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah. So, in the book, you share stories of struggling with mental health services. What advice would you give another parent who feels stuck in that system?
Again, advocate for yourself. Research. Put your kid on every wait list that you can,
Hmm.
because who knows what one will pop up first. if you have the opportunity to be able to afford therapy or afford the services you're wanting for, awesome. Try to find one that you can then pay for, because you will get in faster.
Mhm.
And to be honest, the ones that we paid for were better than the free ones. They're the therapists there are seem to be better trained, or
Yeah.
not necessarily even that, because we did have some good ones through the free services. But the free services were basically, you have to pick a singular goal. And once
Mhm.
that goal is finished, we have to end services and you can go back to the end of the wait list. Whereas when
Okay.
you're paying for service, they'll do whatever goals you tell them, and they'll just keep going to the next goal and the next goal. So if you do have that opportunity, I highly recommend it, because then you're not being put back on a list and put back on a list. I know not everyone can, but it really can make a difference, even if you can only do it for a small amount of time while you're waiting on a wait list, at
Yeah.
least, and you can get something started. Um, and educate yourself as the parent too, not just like, if you are on a wait list and you're waiting for things, read as much as you possibly can, take any parent kind of training that you can, reach out to other parents in similar situations that maybe have some different strategies that you can try in the meantime. Listen to podcasts like this so that you can, again, just find strategies that maybe can work until you can get to the therapy.
Yes, that's amazing advice. So, um, your book discusses the feelings of isolation that many parents of children with disability face. How did you how did you find a support system during the toughest times?
Yes. So a lot, I had love when I was 19. And so, of course, all my friends are going to college and partying. And I went to, my mom would babysit her sometimes. So I would go out a little bit, but I couldn't party like them. I had a baby at home to go take care of. And so slowly I stopped being invited out to things. And it was just too much of a hassle if you had to bring your kid shopping. And so you start to go, huh, okay. And then even as I got older, the friends that did like stick around when she was little, as she started getting more behavioral, as we started seeing the disability come out more, again,
Mhm.
it was, oh yeah, you can't just find a babysitter. Oh, you can't come out because we're gonna go to the mall and we know it's gonna be too loud. And
Mhm.
then again, you're just not invited out anymore. So that isolation
Man.
kind of finds you, and it might be a slow process, like I said, friends slowly dropping off because it's just too much work to invite you.
Yeah.
Um, but then as you're doing research and you're finding things, and you start to find other people. So um, when Lev was grade 3, I want to say it was grade 3, um, she had this idea to do an art show.
Oh.
And yeah, and so I was like, huh, we could maybe make that happen. Let's figure this out. So I talked to some, I found a couple people that were doing like different community service things. I can't even remember how I connected. It must have been Facebook, because I didn't know them before. But anyways, because this is over time 10 years ago, right? um, and so they said this is a great idea, and so there was a core group of 3 of us, me and these 2 other people, who put together a series of first art workshops for kids
Oh.
with autism. And so I think we did 2 workshops for kids with autism and one fully inclusive of everyone. And so we held them over a couple of days, and then we had the art show where it displayed all of those kids' artwork. And Lev sold some of hers, and the kids that wanted to keep theirs, obviously they could keep theirs, and the other ones that they sold them. And we did a food drive, and so everything got donated to the food bank.
Oh.
Um, but from doing that workshop, I started meeting other parents, and I went, oh, okay, let's connect. And so social media is great. So you start following each other, and then you start talking more. So that was my first real finding other people in the similar situation. And then when I was working at where I was an employment counselor, when I was working there, we shared the office with the welfare workers. And
Oh.
so that is where I met my best friend. And so it was actually funny because I went on a mental health leave. I came back. She's on a leave. And I was like,
Oh.
oh, she's not back. Oh no, what if I never see her again? I'm so sad. Then she came back. We had never really hugged before, but we were really close. Like we always talked when we were in the break room. So I gave her a hug. I'm like, I don't even care if you want to hug or not, but I missed you so much. Because we didn't have each other's phone numbers at the time. So we finally exchanged phone numbers, and now we talk all the time. Like that's Renata. So, but you start to find other people when you start expanding to things that you don't normally do. Like I would have never done these art shows before or any of that. So you start to kind of find other people. And again, social media is great. They've got different Facebook groups out there. I'm in the one Autism Niagara Facebook page. And so you share ideas and stuff, and you can bounce things off of other people.
Ooh. So so I think my friend has her kid has neurodiversities. Is it where you wear the big headphones? You know what I'm talking about? The headphones?
Oh yeah, the like
You did?
noise cancely ones.
I think so, yeah. And it
Yeah.
like covers up his whole ear. And I was like, why does he wear those? And then she explained it to me, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yep. Whenever I'm about to put the blender on or the vacuum on, I have to be like, Lev, I'm about to make a lot of noise. And she sticks headphones on. She's like, it's okay.
Oh man. Okay. So I never knew what they was until she explained it. Now you explained it too. So okay. Maybe I
Yeah.
need to buy some of those because sometimes it makes me have really bad headaches when it gets too loud. So
Yeah. So those are great. You can just put them on and cancels out everything else in the world. And
I'm gonna buy me some.
they have these, I haven't tried them, but I was talking to somebody on my show. They're called Loop. I've seen the ads and stuff for them. They're little headphones where it doesn't totally block things out. You can still hear, but it like dims the noise. The
Ooh.
lady said they worked fantastically. I had seen them come up on my Facebook a whole bunch, wondering if they worked. The person that I interviewed said they worked phenomenally. So I don't know. Look into it. They're called Loop.
Ooh, I'm gonna get me some.
Right?
So, were there any specific resources that help you navigate the challenges of raising children with disabilities?
So we have it's called Bethesda. We have a like an organization close here that they gave a lot of information once you have the autism diagnosis. I mean, like it's a long wait list, but they give you all like a whole bunch of different information that you can read over. So that was really helpful. And then I read this book. What is it called? The the Explosive Child. I think that's what it's called. Um, I'll have to actually look it up, but I think it's called The Explosive Child, something like that. And it was a phenomenal read. Um, Really helping to understand that a kid doing a whole bunch of behaviors or exploding um, is trying to communicate. They're not trying to be bad, they're trying to communicate. And so that really made me see things from a different perspective. And I would say that was one of the best one of the best resources. And that can go across for kids with or without neurodiversities because every kid could have moments like that, especially when they're younger and don't have those coping strategies to actually um, express themselves.
Hmm. Hmm. So, how did your views on parenting evolve as you learned more about your children's unique needs?
Mm. So I looked it up. It is called The Explosive Child, and it's by Ross W. Green. Just throwing that out there.
Okay.
Um, you should read it for research for school.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah. Um, well, I always, when you first start parenting, you parent like your parents because you
Hmm.
don't know any different. And not that my mom was bad, but my mom didn't know that I was autistic and she didn't know what to do, right? So at the beginning, I parented like her for the most part. Okay, you're throwing a fit. I'm going to throw you in your room. Not aggressively, but I'm going to put you in your room and shut the door. I don't want to talk to you because
Hmm.
that's what my mom did with me. And then now it's more, okay, you're having a behavioral moment. Why? It's not, and now it's not a behavior thing. It's why. What are you trying to communicate? And my mom has learned a lot too. When I was diagnosed, she goes, I told everyone you weren't spoiled. I knew it. Right? But because she was asking for help when I was younger and she was just getting told it was a behavioral issue, She
Mhm.
didn't know what else to do because she was being told just to discipline harder. So,
Oh.
um, right, that's how you used to deal with it. Just discipline them
Mhm.
more. It's fine. Um, so I think that's probably the biggest change is that I went with how I was raised, where if you're going to throw a fit, you get put in your room and I don't want to see you till you've calmed down.
Mhm.
But the thing is, with a meltdown or not being able to communicate what it is that you need, how do you calm down? And if you're not taught coping strategies, how do you calm down? So now it's much more of a communicative kind of thing. If you're having a meltdown, why? And do not talk to somebody when they're in the midst of the meltdown because they're not going to hear you.
Yeah.
Um, they
Yep.
have, when a meltdown is happening, it's a sensory overload issue to begin with. So if you're adding more sensory information in there, it is not going to work. So wait until the moment has kind of fizzled down a little bit and then talk about it and figure out, okay, if this happens again, what else could we do? And,
Mhm.
like getting those headphones, always a great one.
Man, that is great. Really, 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 really great advice. Really. Because, what kind of feedback have you received from other parents or caregivers who've read your book?
Um, So the one that stands out the most was somebody said, I thought I was all alone. People looked at me like I was crazy when I would talk about my kid doing these things. So thank you so much for letting me know that I'm not the only person whose kid is doing this.
Mhm.
The review said that she cried while she read it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't even know you, and I'm so happy for you. The book also, it has resources at the end of it, things that we've picked up over the years that most doctors or therapists ask you to keep track of. So we give that information up front so you can start tracking it before you even get to the doctor and they can be pleasantly surprised. And so there's been a lot of good feedback on that saying, oh my goodness, thank you that, I can get started on this while I'm waiting for the doctor so that you're not waiting 6 months to see the doctor just to be told to document things to go back in 3 months so they can look over the documents. You'll already have them.
Right. Right. Man. So, can you discuss moments in your book that you felt completely overwhelmed and unsure about how to move forward?
Every single day. Um, there there wasn't any one specific moment that stands out. It really was a I can't say it. Culmination. There we go. I got there. Culmination of things. So, the I like to say it's like a pop can that you shake up and then eventually you pop the tab and it explodes. That is kind of like what it was living the book and writing the book. It's like, okay, I gotta get all these thoughts down because this is how it happened, but now I'm reliving discussing these things with the school, or I'm reliving these meltdowns, and some meltdowns can be violent. And I think
Mhm.
this goes back to that misconception thing. Violent meltdowns aren't the kid having a behavioral issue. A violent
Yeah.
meltdown is because they're still have an overstimulated brain happening, but they can be
Mhm.
violent. I have had things thrown at me. I have had been punched and kicked and bit and spat at and all of those things. And people don't like to talk about them. So I do talk about them in the book because
Mhm.
it is important to understand that sometimes these meltdowns can be violent and the kid usually is quite sorry afterwards because they're not meaning to hurt anyone, but
Mhm.
they just are so overwhelmed that that's how it's coming out.
Yeah.
Um, so that was probably some of the hardest parts to write, was reliving those parts, because again, you want to gloss over them. You don't want to talk about how your kid beat you up. But to be completely transparent and to have the purpose of letting other parents know that they are not alone, I
Mhm.
had to be raw and real about those instances as well, of where she is in a state of such heightened stimulation that stuff's getting thrown, stuff's getting broke. Like there's it's going crazy.
Man. Man. Wow. So whenever a child is doing that, like at the grocery store, it's better to just let them do it, or do you talk to them, like say something to calm them down, or?
So again, every kid's going to be a little bit different. For the most part, you cannot rationalize with
Mhm.
somebody who is in the middle of a meltdown. That's not
Mhm.
going to happen. But you also want to make sure that they're safe and everyone around them is safe. So
Mhm.
Um, when she was younger, I was, and I went to school for corrections, so I had some training with nonviolent crisis intervention. So when she was little, I used to be able to just basically squish her up nice and tight and safe, and let her calm down.
Mhm.
As she grew bigger, that didn't work so well. So there'd be times that, yeah, if all she was doing was throwing soft things that weren't going to hurt, like say she was by her bag of stuffies, and so she was just throwing soft stuff or hitting her pillow, whatever. That's not hurting anybody. That's not hurting her. It's not going to be a big deal.
Mhm.
Times when she threw glass and it shattered all over the floor, we had to call 911 and have them come and help us intervene because she wasn't safe and we weren't safe to go and help her either.
Mhm.
So every situation is going to be different. Ideally, it won't be super violent and you can let them kind of run its course, because that's the thing, is a meltdown basically runs its course because you can't rationalize with them, but ultimately they need to be safe, and
Mhm.
everyone else in the room needs to be safe. So
Mhm.
do the best that you can, but don't be scared to call 911, because we did it so many, like I can't even count how many times we had to call them to help.
Man. Wow. And they're trained, aren't they? Like, are the
Yeah,
cops trained? They are
yeah,
trained?
yeah, yeah. At least where I am, yeah. And they would usually come and they would say, "What do you want us to do?" Right? Like they would ask, so that, because I mean, no cop actually wants to hurt a child like
Mhm.
that. They don't get into being a police officer to come in and start hurting children, right? So they would come in and they would say, "What, like, how do you want us to help?" To make
Yeah.
sure that again, bottom line is everyone needs to be safe.
Mhm. Mhm. It's nice that they're trained out there in California. I don't think they train them here in the US. I'm gonna ask my uncle because he's a cop, and I don't think they do
Yeah,
because
I don't know if all of them are trained, like every
yeah,
single one on the force, but when you do call, they ask what the issue is. So it
yeah.
could be that they're sending specific people out.
Oh, okay.
And sometimes, I mean, again, because they see that it's a kid, sometimes they just want to ask the parent, "What do you want from us? Like, how can we best support you?" Because they don't want to hurt a kid. They're not
Yeah.
they're not in this to hurt anybody.
Okay. Okay. Because I was like, I don't
Yeah.
know. It is definitely different out there in Canada than it is in the States.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure it is.
My last and final question before I let you go: what do you want readers to feel when they finish your book? How do you hope it impacts them?
Um, this is funny. As you're saying that question, I go, I want them to feel not sadness, but tears of joy, I suppose. I want to hit an emotional heartstring is really what it comes down to. And I want them to feel that they're not up by themselves. I want them to
Mhm.
feel that even though life seems like it's spinning out of control, and it might be, that they're not the only ones where life spins out of control.
Yes, yes, that's really great advice. I want to thank you so much, Randy, for being a guest on my podcast again.
Anytime you want me back, I'm here.
All right. Thank you so much. You have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye. Hey everyone, I want to thank you all so much for supporting She Blurs podcast and for listening to my interview with Randy. If you would like to go on her website, you can visit her website. I have it linked in the bio. Have a great day and thank you all so much for your support. Bye.